Hello and welcome to Rulebreaker. Today we're going to dive into the Prophecy of Kings expansion for Twilight Imperium 4th edition with a look at the Barony of Letnev's leaders and Mech unit. So these are one of the most popular factions that I've seen commenting on the channel. There's been a lot of requests for this update video from the Barony, so here you go. They're all about the big fleets. They love big ships. They probably have the best flagship in the game, if not the best, then one of the best. They're absolute monsters. They've got this non-Euclidean shielding, which is a double sustained damage, and they have the L4 disruptors, which mean that space cannon can't be used against your units in invasion. They're an absolute mad invasion force. They love spreading out across the galaxy with big fleets. Their main thing really is that their fleet supply is 2 more than the number of tokens in it, meaning that you've got like a command token advantage right from the start of the game. And their flagship is crazy. It has really good bombardment and really good die hits on 5s with 2 dice, so that they're just all about big smashy things essentially. So let's take a look at their leaders and mech and see what's new for the Barony of Letnev. Okay, so they have an agent called Viscount Unlin. They have a commander called Rear Admiral Farron, which is the face of their faction here. And then they have a hero called Dark Talon Trela. And then they also have a mech called the Dunlane Reaper. Some really cool names chosen for them there. So their agent, Viscount Unlin, the Dunlane Scourge, has the text: at the start of a space combat round, you may exhaust this card to choose one ship in the active system. That ship rolls 1 additional die during this combat round. Okay, so I think this is a good time to point out their reroll ability as well, that they have this munitions reserves, which means that you can spend 2 trade goods at the start of a combat round and then you can re-roll any of the dice in that round. So again, you got to make that decision before you roll the dice, but it is there. Now you've got another thing at the start of a space combat round, and that's to choose a ship that gets an additional die. I imagine you're probably going to combo up this one with that reroll on big moments in the game if you're doing a particularly important fight, to give yourself as many chances to roll those hits as possible. So this agent is a once per round ability. You exhaust the card when the first time you do it, meaning you won't get it back till the next round. So make a count and do as many hits as you can in that all important fight that you're diving into. So it really is as simple as that, an extra die for one of your ships in a fight. Up next is their commander, who unlocks when you have 5 non-fighter ships in one system, and that is where this fleet capacity limit bonus they have comes into play. They like to have big fleets, and now you're going to be forced into having at least 1 big fleet to unlock your commander. And when you do have that nice fleet of 5 ships, you flip this over and it becomes the text: after one of your units uses sustained damage, you may gain 1 trade good. So bear in mind their incredible technology, non-Euclidean shielding, which doubles sustained damage. This is one that you're going to want to get really early in the game, and remind you that you've already got plasma scoring at the start, so there's not a long wait to get to non-Euclidean shielding. When you've got that, and when you've got your commander, this sustained damage is going to be getting used a lot. You're going to be building the types of units that have sustained damage, and you do start with a dreadnought, remember? So you've already got it right at the beginning of the game. Now you're going to be getting those trade goods that you so desperately want for your rerolls and for all that good stuff, and now you've got another piece of access to that. The commander is an always on ability. Unlike the agent, you don't have to exhaust it to use it. It's just always happening, so whenever you use sustained damage, you just take a token out of the box. So every time someone starts hitting you, you're part of the way there towards those rerolls and extra hits. So that's pretty good. If you form an alliance with somebody with promissory notes, they'll have access to this as well, meaning that they may start stockpiling trade goods on their side. So yeah, pretty straightforward. Another access to some goodies for the Barony of Letnev. Now onto their hero, Dark Talon Trela, who unlocks when you have scored 3 objectives. Pretty standard for a hero. Once you've done that, you flip her over, and she has the ability Dark Matter Affinity, which is an action. Place this card near the game board. The number of non-fighter ships you can have in systems is not limited by laws or by the number of command tokens in your fleet pool this game round. At the end of that game round, purge this card. Okay, so for one entire round, I'm guessing you're going to do this at an opportune time, but maybe you're going to do it at the start of a round to get the most use out of it. These fleet limit tokens basically are meaningless. You should probably shift them onto a different part of your board, get them into tactical or strategy, and then you can have essentially infinite fleets in every system, if that's possible. I'm thinking lots of carriers with lots of fighters, along with some big ships, or just constantly having all of the ships that you own in the one system and finding a way to move them around a couple of times, maybe with the warfare strategy card, to do as much damage in localized areas as possible. Something to bear in mind is that this is a once per game ability. This is gone after that round is over, and any fleets you have that are bigger than what you've got in your fleet supply, again with the +2 bonus, will have to be culled down to that size. So this is a temporary thing, and you might want to be careful about it. You probably don't want to have the fleet going too big, because it's going to have to come back down to earth eventually. I'm quite curious what you guys think about this one. I find it very hard to judge without being in a game. It's probably the hardest hero I've had to think about since doing research for this expansion. I feel like it could bite you in the ass just as much as it could help you. I'd love to get some opinions from what you guys have seen in games. If you've played as the Barony of Letnev, or if you've played against them even, what has your experience been with the Dark Matter Affinity? Please let us know in the comments. Yeah, I actually wait to see what you have to say about that. So moving on to their Mech, 2 cost 6 combat sustained damage, pretty standard for a Mech. Theirs has a deploy ability, which reads, at the start of a round of ground combat, you may spend 2 resources to replace one of your infantry in that combat with 1 Mech. So this is a access ability, something that not all factions have. It's a nice one. It means that you can decide to defend one of your planets as it's attacked by changing your infantry into mechs, or you can change some of your infantry into mechs as they go down to a planet, or even in the middle of a whole combat. As long as it's the start of a round, you can do this. So if you're starting to lose, maybe you really don't want to lose that combat, if it's the 3rd round or the 4th round of a ground combat and your infantry is starting to get whittled down, it might be worth spending those 2 resources to change one of them into a mech and get going with it. This is not limited to once per ground combat. It is limited by each round of that combat though. So in the first round you can do it, and then you could do it again in the second round, and then you could do it again in the third round. If you've got the infantry and the resources to do it and the mechs to spare, that's fine. You can't put all your mechs down in one go by putting down like 6 resources to put in 3 mechs or whatever. You can't do that in one go. It has to be 1 per round of the ground combat. So a timing limitation there, but one that allows you to evaluate as you go where those mechs are going to be deployed. So that is kind of interesting in that way. You can assess after each round of ground combat if you like. So that's kind of cool. That's a very nice accessibility option for the Barony's ground forces. So in my opinion, probably one of the best mechs in the game, really, for having that diversity and versatility. And that's kind of it for their stuff from the Prophecy of Kings. Yeah, so lots of trade good stuff, more rerolls, extra combat, extra dice, usually basically what they already do. This weird hero with the infinite fleet for one entire round, very curious about what you guys' opinions are on that, and the versatile mech, so that's pretty cool. One more piece of business to go through before we wrap the video up. In the Twilight Imperium Codex, there is an update to the Barony of Letnev's promissory note Warfunding. They now have Warfunding Omega. This is a print and play expansion for Twilight Imperium 4th edition that you can get from the Fantasy Flight Games website. There'll be a link in the description of this video for more information on that. But the difference here is, previously you used to lose 2 trade goods when the other player would use your promissory note. So it used to be that they could force you to lose 2 trade goods, then during the combat round they could re-roll any number of dice, then they would give you back Warfunding, and you'd be able to shop it around again. Warfunding Omega is now a change to that. It reads, after you and your opponent roll dice during space combat, you may re-roll all of your opponent's dice. You may re-roll any number of your dice. Then return this card to the Letnev player. So it doesn't do anything with your trade goods. You're not going to have to lose trade goods at the whim of your other players. That's not happening anymore. The new version is lots of re-rolls. Now, so one thing that's notable about this is that it says you may re-roll all of your opponent's dice. And then it says you may re-roll any number of your dice. I think this is a binary thing. You either roll all of them again or none of them. And yours, you pick and choose which dice that is. So that's a bit of a gamble. You might end up making things worse, or you might end up making things better. But this is going to be an ability on the person who has this card, not on you. So it's going to be up to them, and when they're finished with it, they're going to give it back to you. And that's it for the Barony. Big fleets, leverage the Arc Secundus flagship with those nice re-rolls from non-Euclidean shielding like you're used to from base game, but now you have an extra die if you're doing that, if you want to use your Viscount Umlin in unison with that. And you're also going to be taking trade goods for sustained damage as well. Lots of versatility with your mech, and again, really weird hero where you've got infinite fleet size. So that's the Barony of Letnev. Think they're super fun to play, and I'm very excited to give them a go when I play in the future. So that's it for Rulebreaker today. We'll be back with some more videos very soon. Thanks for watching.